It basically is telling your story as part of their story. So if you think of a fairy tale where the heroine needs to go out and slay a dragon, unfortunately, they don't have a horse or a sword, and they can't slay the dragon. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves. But the true hero of the story is the person who gives them that horse or a sword.
Hey, it's Nick Armstrong, and this is the Founded in FoCo podcast. Every episode, we get to talk with a mover and shaker in our community doing innovative and interesting things. And today, I am here with Karl Dakin. And Karl, tell us about your business.
Sure. So I wear many hats between the businesses that I operate and businesses through which I provide services. And with regard to Founded in FoCo, I'm wearing the hat for Entrepreneur Pro, which is how I provide information that I've learned about raising capital and trying to share that with entrepreneurs.
So would you describe yourself as like a venture capitalist, an angel investor, or something along those lines, or just a super savvy business entrepreneur who's been there, done that, got the t-shirt?
I do wear all those hats, but the hat I prefer to wear is I call myself sometimes a capital coach. Where I'm acting just like a coach would, where I'm trying to help you figure out how to play your game at the best, and with the singular focus of raising capital, regardless of form, however that asset may come in the door to help you start and grow a business.
So how did you get interested in that work? And how did you, what was the pathway to get there?
Sure. So a long time ago, 40 some years ago, when I started my career officially, I was involved in providing services, primarily wearing the hat as an attorney for a number of high-tech startups. And over the decades, I've worked with hundreds of startups, and invariably, each and every one of them was short of the capital they needed. And I became the person that was the go-to for where do we find the money, or where do we find the equipment or the people or whatever else we need to throw this thing together and get it in motion. And through that time, then I realized that a lot of what we're taught, what's commonly written in the books, Shark Tank and the like, are pretty much wrong. It isn't that they're wrong all the time, but they're statistically wrong so much that you wouldn't advise anyone reasonably to engage in that activity in the manner in which they try to get you to do it. So I started working, trying to figure out first how to get into the mind of the investor, and focusing primarily on angel investors. And then as I was working with grants and governments and community projects and so forth, I found some commonality that I've woven into my own approach, which I call motivated money. And what I try to do there is I say, if we're going to go out and raise capital, I want to talk to the first person I want to talk to is that person who has the highest level of motivation, has the highest level of self-interest in making their resources available to me, because I don't want to spend all day raising capital.
It's interesting that you were able to tie commonalities between community projects all the way over to entrepreneurship. What defines a successful venture? Is it that there are folks willing to invest, or is it a great idea, or is it just that there was some sort of really good market product fit?
At the end of the day, the true test is whether or not you bring a new product or service to market that benefits the customers who need that particular product or service. Raising capital is simply one of the activities that you commonly have to go through in order to be able to do all the things you do in getting a business up and running. So raising capital is a milestone towards that success. But if we're not really helping somebody in the market, we're not doing much of anything.
Can you talk about the local capital scene and what that looks like? We've heard a lot of different things that happen in the capital industry as a whole, right? That women entrepreneurs have a harder time getting loans. People of color have a harder time getting loans, and capital raising in general is just a trickier beast for them. Can you talk about what the scene looks like locally, and what groups exist and what people are doing to sort of level the playing field?
Yeah, the world of investors can is commonly just limited to financial institutions and wealthy individuals who are in the business of putting that money to work. And there is an old joke about a guy down on his knees under a light at night, and a cop comes along and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm looking for my keys." And after 10 minutes, cop says, "Keys aren't here." He says, "No, but the light's better here." And this joke translates one-to-one with the way that most people go about trying to raise capital. They see somebody who presents and holds themselves out as having capital, but they don't take into consideration whether or not they themselves are going to meet the criteria for that particular investor. And therefore, they unfortunately spend all their time talking to the wrong people, telling a story that's not going to go anywhere. And entrepreneurs can't afford to do that. And I've worked with too many of them where they ran down that path until they ran out of resources, and then the business failed or it suffered a lot trying to get back to where it was. So the basic local scene is, if you're a startup business, you're going to have to find three things. You're going to have to find somebody who knows you, because your trust and credibility is the first key in making an investment decision. The second thing is, do they have the resources you need? Which it would appear that they would if they're a financial institution or an angel. But the third question, and unfortunately the deciding question, is what is their level of motivation? And their motivation is dictated by the style of business they do, what kind of money they're holding, who they're responsible to. And we will find that somebody who makes an investment solely for a rate of return, that's interest or a share of revenue or share of profits, is not going to have a high enough motivation for nearly all businesses, because they're too risky, their profit margins are too low, they can't provide the degree of security that these guys are looking for, and they can cherry pick, so they will. And that leaves almost everybody looking somewhere else.
Tell us about your talk at Founded in FoCo. It directly relates to this in particular.
Sure. So we're going to talk about raising money during the middle of a recession. And so to some people, they may not notice any difference, because if you go to an angel investor and get turned down, you don't care whether there's a recession or not. But the fact of the matter is that almost everything that we see in the media and elsewhere talks about angel investors, sometimes about venture capitalists or private equity firms. And because of the recession, the market is unstable. It's chaotic right now, which makes it difficult for investors to forecast the future and what kind of outcome they may get from their investment. So there's been a decrease in investments. Depends on whether you look, which platform you look at or who you're talking to. Anywhere from 25 to 65% of the money is now sitting on the sidelines, waiting until this chaos ends. And with the Fed jacking the interest rates again yesterday, the chaos is going to continue until everybody figures out everything's going to sit still for a while. So what I'm talking about in my presentation is my motivated money approach, where we want to look to sources of funding that need to continue moving forward despite the recession. They don't have the discretion to sit still, sit on the sidelines, put their money into what's called dry powder and wait to storm out. They have to continue to go out there and do what they're going to do. And people who I call stakeholders, who stand to benefit from the success of your organization without ever making an investment. This may be people in your supply chain. It may be your customers. It can include different community groups or taxing authorities and so forth. They all will benefit without ever putting a dime in your pocket. But because they're benefiting, because they're already interested in your success, then if they can be talked into making an investment, they get a twofer out of it. They get the return on investment and they get the reward in the form of the benefit from your success. And this is in my approach, then these people then stand to be the most likely to invest with the highest motivation. And they're still going to be around during a recession. And, a very simple thing is, if you buy services or products from a company and you reconfigure those in your product or service, they're a vendor or supplier to you, and they want you to grow. They want you to thrive. They want you to be all you can be, because they're going to sell you more stuff. And it's a very direct, easy to measure monetary benefit that they're going to realize. And so they make a candidate that you should be looking at always if you're going to raise capital. You're going, well, if I'm making you more profit, why wouldn't you want to invest in me? And the story I tell, the only time I've ever raised money where I got a check the same day I asked for it, we had one of those scenarios where a guy had been buying product for a couple of years. He talked to the supplier. He said, "What are you planning to do?" He says, "Well, I'm going to try to ramp up production." And they went through the numbers, and the guy says, "Well, how much money do you need?" He says, "I need $200,000. The guy calculated it and figured that he would make $2 million in profits from selling the component parts to this company if they hit his target, and in addition to making a rate of return on the investment." He says, "Wait a minute," went back, got out his checkbook, and wrote a check for $200,000 right there, because it was a straightforward, obvious benefit to him. And that's the kind of thing we look for. But we also look for more exotic combinations where it may be indirect, it may be non-monetary. We may be talking to a taxing authority who says, "Well, you have to buy a building and then I'm going to tax it, or you're going to hire people, I'm going to tax them, or you're going to sell goods and I'm going to tax that." And you're saying, "Fine, all of these work as long as you will give me a local economic development grant, because I'm going to do all these new and good things." The other thing I often point out is that people get caught up on raising capital in the form of cash. And there's quite often you can go to the direct source, people, equipment, facilities, and so forth, and find someone who's willing to invest because it's an underutilized or unused asset to them. And they're quite happy to do a deal. And they're not asking for astronomical pricing on the money because they're just trying to get more out of what they already have. So we go through this analysis. And what it leads us to is we have a whole list of people. They're well-defined. We know who they are. We know why they care. When we talk to them, we can talk to them about them, not about ourselves, which tends to be another fault of entrepreneurs, to look like an ATM machine, and go, "Nobody cares about you. You look like everybody else." But when we go through that, we'll find those people who may actually get more benefits outside of the investment than within the investment. And in certain circumstances, you'll find people who need you so badly they can't perform their mission, they can't achieve their goals without you. And that's when you're done. You don't have to pitch, you just have to take an order, put the deal together, and go home. So what we try to do, talk about is just show people there's a different group of people, a different reason for investing, and that reason is often superior to the one that we all are used to and commonly know. And if we go to those people and we talk to them about them and how we can help them achieve what they want to achieve, we're going to make a whole bunch of friends, even if we don't get any funding. And if they need us and they don't have the funding, then they're going to work hard to make sure we get whatever resources we need because they need us. And as simple as that, this is all basic marketing, which is your area of forte. It's just weird to me sometimes, if somebody brings out a new product or service, they typically don't try to go out and sell it to everybody. They go out and find who's going to get the most benefit, the low-hanging fruit. They're going to work their way down to people who get lesser and lesser benefit till they've exhausted their market. But that's what you have to do in raising capital. And if we apply these same fundamentals of marketing to raising capital, it's not illogical. It doesn't look like voodoo science, and somebody doesn't have to win the lottery or get extraordinarily lucky in order to be successful.
Yeah, it's weird that money creates those oddities in people's rationale, right? It short circuits that logic where they could create a really good fit for folks that they're looking to invest, or even looking at the obvious, right? The vendors, the suppliers, the folks who are up and downstream of you, who would be standing to benefit if they did invest in some way or another. So that's I can't wait for your talk. What's one thing that, in your experience, sets businesses up well to go in and pitch?
It basically is telling your story as part of their story. So if you think of a fairy tale where hero, heroine needs to go out and slay a dragon. Unfortunately, they don't have a horse or a sword. and they can't slay the dragon. And that's where a lot of entrepreneurs find themselves. But the true hero of the story is the person who gives them that horse or a sword. And if you talk to them about not slaying the dragon, but the benefits of slaying the dragon, how does that help them? Does their community thrive? Can they marry off their daughter? Get the crops in, whatever it's going to be. If we're talking to them about themselves, about who they are and what they're trying to achieve, we're demonstrating knowledge, concern, care. We develop respect and credibility because we're not just sticking our hand out asking for what amounts to be a professional gift. And this comes across very strongly to the investor candidates because this is the kind of person they want to do business with. And as I said, even if they don't have the resources that you may be looking for, they will quite often be very happy to do introductions and show you around because to some degree they're benefiting from your success, even if they don't make the investment themselves.
Yeah, that growth of that network is really important in all aspects of business, whether it's in bootstrapping or investing or marketing or what have you. It's important to know that people will want to refer you to their people. We grow that Venn diagram every day.
Well, and there's so many things then that you can do to then accentuate that. Where if you're doing ROI, it's a one size fits all. Whereas if you are doing benefits, you might have 4 different packages, all tailored and amplified for that specific group, or even down to an individual investor candidate, where you go, well, what if I throw this on top of the stack? What do you think? And they're like, wow, that's great. You're thinking about me. And they're going to love you more than you love yourself, and that is your ultimate goal.
Where can we find out more about you and your business?
Yeah, so the best place to find out more about me and about what we're doing and sharing information on raising capital is a webpage called motivated.money. It's as simple as that. And on that page, we talk about the method. We talk about a boot camp that I put on for entrepreneurs, a podcast that I'm catching up with you and doing podcast and learning stuff every day about that facet of sharing the word. But that's the best place to start. You can get my contact information, learn more about what we're doing. And from there, you can jump off in different directions, whether you want to do it yourself or you want somebody to do it for you. We'll try to figure out what the proper match is.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm Nick Armstrong, and this is a Founded in FoCo podcast. For more great interviews like this one, join us at foundedinfoco.com.